to the Work Wonders podcast, brought to you by Asta HR, where we simplify the human side of business. I'm Angela.
And I'm Susan. Let's dive into today's episode and find out what you've been wondering about.
In today's episode, we're diving into a topic that's increasingly shaping how small businesses engage their teams, HR technology. More specifically, we're going to discuss how the right HR tech can enhance employee engagement and retention, or in some cases, it might even hinder these efforts.
That's right, Angela. Technology is rapidly transforming the way we manage people, from performance reviews to employee feedback. And there's so many options out there, aren't there?
There is.
So how do you choose the right tools, and how can you be sure that the technology is actually helping to build stronger relationships rather than replacing them?
Yep, that's it. So let's jump in. This is the Work Wonders podcast. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Angela.
All right, so HR tech, we know it well. We use a few, but as you said, there's quite a few to choose from that are out there. So let's start with, how can it enhance employee engagement? Well, I would say over the past few years, we've seen sort of an explosion of digital tools, really.
Yeah, especially since COVID came on the scene.
Yeah. So they can be everything from designed to streamline your processes to having a system for employee recognition or feedback, or tools around performance management or even recruitment and things like that. For your business, you might not have the resources to need a HR team of your own, but these platforms could still be a real game changer for you.
Yeah, that's right, because, these tools can give you a structured and consistent approach to engagement and retention, which, we can be lacking if we don't have something there. So, for example, you can automate employee surveys so that you can check in on how your employees are feeling about the business, and you can run recognition programs off one of these platforms that would highlight great work and track performance metrics. So it's not only saving you time, it's ensuring that your employee engagement efforts are consistent, even in small teams.
Plus, HR tech platforms often will offer data-driven insights, and you can learn about the engagement of your team, as you said, but it can help you identify both what you're doing well and what you can improve in. Those sort of analytics, for instance, can flag potential retention risks really early, allowing you the chance to take a proactive step before someone decides to leave.
Well, that's a good idea.
I think so too.
That would be a real benefit, I think. And also using that technology to track and support employee development, usually starting from a performance review and having that discussion around what development activities your employee wants to do to grow in the role. That can really make a huge difference in retention. So when employees can see that their growth's being tracked and recognised, they're more likely to feel valued and stay with the organisation longer. Flexible working arrangements, as we are often talking about, we need to come up with shorthand for that. They can also be supported by HR tech. So you can use HR tech for scheduling and leave management. And as we all experienced during COVID and the lockdowns, you use HR tech as a communication tool to communicate with people who may not necessarily be working from the same premises. And it can also contribute to work-life balance, which we all know is key to retaining talent.
Absolutely. Well, look, that's a really good summary of what it can do and all the benefits. But let's flip it around now and talk about some of the potential pitfalls that might come with using HR tech. One of the biggest risks I can see is an over-reliance on tech. So while these tools can streamline those processes, it's important to remember that it should complement human interaction and certainly not replace it.
Exactly. And I think it's a common mistake that managers might rely too heavily on the digital tools for engagement.
Yeah.
Like just sending automated feedback or recognition messages without having a personal touch.
Yeah.
And without really thinking about it. And I can see why you would do that. Everyone's so busy these days, and if the system's there and it can do it for you, why not? But that's not going to help your employee engagement. So that doing those sort of things, employees are going to feel like you've just tick the box.
Yeah.
And that would actually decrease their sense of connection to the organisation, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. And then there's tech fatigue, Susan. So,
What's that? Is that a thing? I can't imagine that.
well, where employees are bombarded with too many platforms or tools to use, and it can lead to burnout, So, for example, let's think of like a team, if they're using multiple communication channels, an engagement platform, a project management tool, it's really easy to get overwhelmed with all of that. So the key is to try and integrate it and simplify it, making it a seamless sort of workflow without overloading people.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's really important to ensure that the HR tech that you choose actually fits into your existing work practices and doesn't create more work for people. So complex systems that are going to require a lot of training or effort and then end up frustrating employees are exactly what you don't want. You want something that's going to make their work easier.
Yeah.
So there's really probably a bit of assessment that you need to do in terms of the capabilities of your staff and the expectations of your staff.
As you've been listening to our topics over the various episodes, I wonder, has there been something that's popped out for you? Something that you would like to know more about? Or maybe a particular topic that we haven't yet discussed? We'd love to bring that to you, so please let us know and we'll prepare that information and bring you an episode that you're looking for. You can do that by getting in touch with us via our website, asterhr.com.au. For now, it's back to the episode.
Anyway, let's move on to some practical tips.
Yeah, so we've talked about the good and the bad, I guess, haven't we? So why it's really valuable and what might be the potential pitfalls. But yeah, something practical. So how can a small business or any business make the most out of HR technology? Well, first you have to choose the right tool. As you said, that needs to be fit for purpose and going to be the right sort of tool for your team and the needs of your organisation. You don't need a massive budget or a really complex system or lots of systems. You could start with really basic things, and some things don't have to be a tool in itself. You might just use an Excel spreadsheet for something and just use one tool for a specific, engagement thing or something. You might choose a tool for surveys only every year, or it might be a feedback tool or that recognition program. It just needs to be user-friendly so that people will actually use it and obviously affordable to fit in with your budget.
Yeah, exactly. So start somewhere, but when you do start, or if you are starting and growing, then think of scalability as a key requirement of whatever you're doing. So look for platforms that are going to grow with your organisation. Often that means cloud-based solutions because they're more cost-effective. Yeah. You can have a subscription rather than purchasing a whole chunk of software up front, and they'll update as you go along and offer the flexibility that you need if you're in a smaller business or with a restricted budget. So they're going to allow you to add features as you grow without you overloading the team up front, and that's important as well. So you might look at all the features that you want all the things.
Yeah.
But my advice would be don't introduce all the things at once. Just work out your priorities and slowly work your way up.
Yeah, and think about the size of your team as well. You might not need all the things if you've only got a few people. Yeah. And make sure whatever tech you're choosing is enhancing, not replacing that human interaction, as we spoke about.
Oh, good one, yeah.
Yeah, so use technology to gather data, to automate things that are, a simple task, or it's helpful to add to your process, or send out reminders, but always follow up with that personal, meaningful interaction.
So what could that look like?
Well, it could be a face-to-face meeting or a personalised note of recognition, a handwritten note. I got one of those the other day and it's just so nice. It's a sort of a forgotten thing. But it can really offer that personal touch and you feel valued on a human level.
So, the sort of things we've seen amongst smaller organisations where they're using HR tech, for example, for engaging their staff and as part of trying to keep it more personalised, is that they might use an online platform for employee recognition, but they'll also hold, a monthly employee of the month.
Oh,
or
yeah. Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing, where there's actually a personal and public acknowledgement of what the
Nice,
team's
yeah.
achieved. So that's what we're meaning when we're saying, well, you can combine and balance the tech approach and the personal approach.
Yeah, yeah. Another tip is to regularly review what you're using.
Essential.
Yeah, so make sure they're actually helping to boost engagement and retention, and just check that they are. If they're not fit for purpose anymore, you don't need to use them, or you might need to add more. Are your employees finding it useful, or do they feel that sense of overwhelm with too many systems? And you can track these sorts of engagement things, metrics, depending on what systems you're using, or it might just be survey data or conversations with your staff and what sort of information you're getting back there, or even just retention data, how many people are actually staying on, how many people are leaving.
As you're saying that, Angela, I was thinking if the system's not working for your employees, you're probably going to hear about it pretty soon.
Yes, you're right.
You're probably not going to have to wait until you run a survey to find out. Having said that, it is that feedback that you need, and just using that to assess whether this is too clunky and not adding any value, in which case you're going to have to pivot.
Yeah.
Or at least make some important decisions early on. The best tools are the smart tools that are going to make work easier and more enjoyable and not make it more complicated.
Yeah. So look, HR technology can be a really powerful tool for enhancing employee engagement and retention, but it does need to be used wisely, as we're saying. So choose the platform that fits your needs and ensuring that it complements what you're doing just on a person-to-person level, and always be open to that feedback.
Yeah, I think it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking people are just whinging because they don't like change.
Yes.
So if you do get people who are whinging because they don't like change, get them to be more specific about what's not working for them with the technology. And aside from all that, we hope you've got something out of today's episode, and there's been some useful insights for you on how to approach HR technology in your organisation. Whether you're a small business or a larger business or a not-for-profit, having the right tools really can make a big difference in creating a more engaged and loyal workforce. And, just as having the wrong tools and making work harder for them will have the opposite effect.
And if you're sitting there wondering exactly what sort of tools are we talking about, well, I'll point out our episode from Season 4, Episode 2, where we shared the tools that we actually use, Susan, and a bit more insight to the type of tech that we're talking about, and even some examples of names of programs that we shared, I think, in that episode. So if you wanted to know that in more detail, you might be someone who'd like to go back to that episode and have a listen. But apart from that, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a review while you're there. We always love to hear what you think of the podcast. And if you know someone who could get something out of the content from today's episode, please let them know.
Keep in mind that technology is a tool to enhance engagement, but it's the human connections that really drive success.
And we hope you've got a lot out of this season where we talked in depth about engagement and retention.
We'll be back soon, and until then, we wish you a happy and safe festive season.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas, and enjoy some time off, hopefully from work.
Please.
A bit of a break, and reinvigorate yourselves. And
Merry Christmas.